After watching the most recent Chasing the Sun episode, it was clear to see that Manie Libbok really struggled in the quarterfinal and definitely in the semi-final. Which begs the question, who should play fly-off for the Springboks this year? As always, make sure to let me know your opinions down in the comments. I do try and reply to as many as I can. Also, if you haven't, please hit that subscribe button. About 93% of you watch this channel on a regular basis are not subscribed, and our goal is to hit 100,000 subscribers by the end of this year. Now, there are two main options, obviously being Manie Libbok and Handré Pollard, but in today's video, I want to go through the top 7 suggestions that I have for who should start and come off the bench and play fly-off for the Springboks in 2024. Obviously, there's a plethora of test matches this year, the 2 against Ireland, the 1 against Portugal, and then you obviously have the Rugby Championship coming up. So there's a lot of games to experiment with different fly-halves at different times against different opposition. Now, these players are in no particular order. Obviously, I'll tell you which ones are my favorite, but we're going to start off with Sasha Mngumezulu, who played fly-off at school level. He plays fly-off for Western Province within sort of the Currie Cup, and he's used more as a utility back for the Stormers. He's very, very young. He's only 22 years of age, and he's kind of been promoted as one of the up-and-comers, one of the players who are going to take over the torch from the older generation and sort of carry the Springbok flame forward. He made the alignment camp squad, and I do think we're going to see him in a Springbok jersey this year, but I don't know if we're going to see him in that number 10 jersey. I think he's going to be used more as a utility back. Think of like a Damian Willemse who can play 15, who can play center, who can play fly-off, and potentially even wing. It wouldn't surprise me if he did get a start at that number 10 jersey, especially in a game, for instance, against Portugal. But I don't know if he's going to be a mainstay in that number 10 jersey. As you'll see with the names coming up, there's a lot of competition for that number 10 jersey, and it's just going to be interesting to see how Rassie Erasmus manages the options, especially at fly-off, but in the Springbok team as a whole. The next option, staying in the Stormers, is obviously Damian Willemse. Now, Damian Willemse is one of the most experienced Springbok players at the moment, and he's only 25 years old. He's played in 2 World Cups, he's won 2 World Cups, and he's probably one of the best players on the planet at the moment. Why I don't think he will start at number 10 over Manie Libbok or Handré Pollard is just because I think he's much better at 15. We also, I think, lack a little bit of depth in the number 15 position. So I think Damian Willemse has that number 15 jersey. Willie Leroux is going to start being faded out of that Springbok lineup. So Damian Willemse, while he is one of the best players in the world, he can definitely slot in at 10 if that has to happen in a game where someone gets injured, but I definitely think he's better at that number 15 role, and we know he can also play that number 12 role. Then moving from the Western Cape to Gauteng and into the Lions, we have Jordan Hendrikse, who's one of the youngsters coming up. Also, I think he's a little bit underrated. People have differing opinions on Jordan Hendrikse, but he's definitely an up-and-comer. He made the lineman camp squad. He's only 22 years old, and he is a little bit more like Manie Libbok than a Handré Pollard. He's a little bit better at attack. His defense maybe needs a little bit of work, and his kicking maybe isn't up to the standard of Pollard, but again, one of those very dangerous, elusive players who can break open a game like a Manie Libbok. I just think he might need a little bit of time to mature, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see him get a couple of caps this year for the Springboks where they test him out, maybe not against Ireland or New Zealand, but think of the Argentina games or the Portugal game, somewhere along those lines. The next player, also a Lions player, Sanelo Nhamba, who has been absolutely lighting it up this season. He also provides a little bit of utility. He can play that number 9 role as well as that number 10 role. He is a little bit older than Jordan Hendrikse, being 25, but I still think he's still going to reach his prime. Just based on form, I do think Nhamba is probably ahead of Sasha Mngumezulu and Jordan Hendrikse at the moment, whether that be at number 9 or at number 10. I think him at 9 and someone like a Manie Libbok at 10 could be very, very dangerous. Obviously, 9 and 10 position is one of the most competitive positions in the Springbok outfit. But again, one of those players who will get a start at some point this year against Portugal. I would not even be surprised if Nhamba goes over to Australia and plays against Australia in the Rugby Championship. That's how good I think he is. That's the kind of form that he's been in. And I do think he deserves a little bit of a break, and I would love to see him in a Springbok jersey this here. Then someone who maybe not a lot of you have thought of or even know is Siyabonga Mazuku, who has now transferred from the Cheetahs to the Sharks. He transferred at the beginning of the season, but he didn't get much game time in that Sharks jersey. That's because Cohen Bosch was starting a lot of the games for the Sharks. But since Cohen Bosch's form has dipped a little bit and the Sharks went through that dreadful patch, Mazuku has come in and taken over that 10 position, and I think he is one of the major reasons why that Sharks team has started winning again. He's dynamic, he's physical, he has a great kicking game. I would put his kicking probably close to Handré Pollard. He's probably got the best kicking other than Handré Pollard on this list. I think, like I said, he's physical, he can break the game open, and we just saw over this last weekend how well he played against Edinburgh. And I definitely think, yes, he is 27, maybe he can be putting the team to build towards the 2031 World Cup, but I definitely think we're going to see him in a Springbok jersey this season. I wouldn't even be surprised if he starts a couple of games. Maybe they throw him into the deep end against a team like New Zealand, but he will be in a Springbok jersey in my opinion, and I think he's probably a little bit higher rated than Nahomba, than Damian Willems in the 10 jersey, than Jordan Hendrickse, than Sashram Gumazulu, just because he has that experience. He played very, very well in a Cheetahs top, which is why he got the transfer to the Sharks, and he's absolutely turned that Sharks team and made it functioning. That backline's operating. His chemistry with and Mpimpi is very, very good. He also can kick. His kicking over the weekend was very, very good. So I'm sure we will see him in a Springbok number 10 jersey. And then the obvious two choices are Manie Libbok and Handré Pollard. Now, I think the World Cup and Chasing the Sun sort of exposed Manie Libbok just a little bit in terms of his kicking game, in terms of the BMT that he has, but I don't think we can solely blame it on Manie Libbok. He played extremely well against Scotland. He played extremely well against Ireland. Yes, he missed a couple of kicks. Yes, he missed kicks against Ireland that ultimately made us not win that game. Yes, he missed a couple of kicks against Scotland. Yes, maybe the pressure got to him a little bit in the quarterfinal and definitely in the semi-final. But you got to think he hasn't been in a Springbok shirt for all that long. I think before the World Cup, he'd been playing for the Springboks for maybe a year. He had a couple of caps to his name. And to step up and lead that Springbok team in the number 10 jersey is a massive, massive ask. Yes, his kicking percentage is around 67%, meaning that he misses 1 out of every 3 kicks. But I do think he has the potential to be a 75% kicker. And then he's cooking with some real oil, because his attacking game is phenomenal. His defensive game is phenomenal. And when his boots is working, he's just a phenomenal rugby player. I think out of this whole list, Manie Libbok probably is the best rugby player if you didn't take kicking into account. His vision, his ability to find gaps, to put other people into space is absolutely phenomenal. And then we've got Pollard, who is absolutely ice cold. I mean, we saw it in the World Cup, and I do think Pollard's stats of 12 out of 12 kicks in the World Cup did make Manie Libbok look a little bit bad and maybe exaggerated Manie Libbok's mistakes. But I don't think Manie was bad at all in that World Cup. And like I said, if his boots working, it's exactly what Ricey said. If Manie Libbok's boots working, then he is the best number 10 in a Springbok top. The problem is that Handré Pollard is just so cool under pressure. He's played in 3 World Cups. He's won 2 World Cups. He's built for those big moments. There's just a little bit of a difference between Manie Libbok and Handré Pollard and the BMT that they have. So who do I think is going to play for the Springboks this year? Look, I think they're probably going to experiment quite a lot. I do think Handré Pollard is still our number 1 fly half, but I think what they're going to do this year, maybe bar the Ireland games, I think Pollard will probably start against Ireland. Manie will probably get a start in the Rugby Championship. But I think for the rest of the games, what they're going to do is they're going to start the younger players, the Sashram Gumazulus, the Jordan Hendrickses, the Nohambas, the Mazuku. Even though he's not that young, he is inexperienced. And I think they're going to give them shots, let them start, and then they're going to have someone like a Handré Pollard on the bench just in case something goes awry, just in case Pollard has to come on in the 30th minute or in the 75th minute to kick a final penalty to win the game. So I do think we're going to see a lot of experimentation in the number 10 jersey this year for the Springboks, which will be a good thing. Could be a bad thing. We could lose quite a few games, but as we know, Rassie doesn't really care about win percentage between World Cups. He's only focused on taking the best 23-man team to the World Cup. So I think that's what's going to happen. I think Pollard is our number one still. Manie Libbok is probably the best rugby player out of all of them, but we are going to see some experimentation in that number 10 jersey with the guys that I mentioned. As always, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Who do you think should play 10? If you haven't, make sure you hit that subscribe button and leave this video a like. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Take it easy. Peace.